When people talk about pressure, they often describe it as if it is the ultimate test of human ability. We like to believe that when the spotlight shines, when the stakes are high, when the crowd is watching, we will somehow discover within ourselves a reserve of power we never knew existed. We imagine that the human spirit is built to rise, that greatness reveals itself in the heat of the moment. But the truth is far less romantic and far more sobering. People don't suddenly rise to the occasion. They fall back to their habits. They don't perform at the level of their aspirations. They perform at the level of their preparation. Think about an athlete standing at the starting line of an Olympic final. Millions of people watching, their nation's flag stitched to their uniform, the weight of years of training pressing on their shoulders. At that moment, the crowd believes that this person will deliver their greatest performance because of the pressure. But that's not what happens. What happens in that moment is simply the execution of everything they've practiced thousands of times before. The way they breathe, the way they move, the way they control their nerves, all of that has been rehearsed. The Olympic final doesn't create champions. It exposes them. It doesn't manufacture skill. It reveals it. Pressure doesn't teach you how to perform. It teaches you what you've actually been practicing when no one was paying attention. This is why when you see people crumble in critical moments, it's not because they lacked potential. It's because their habits weren't strong enough to carry them. When you're under stress, your brain doesn't say, "Now is the time to invent a better version of myself." Instead, your brain says, "Now is the time to rely on what I know best." And if what you know best is hesitation, procrastination, excuses, or shortcuts, then that is what will show up in the moment of truth. The pressure doesn't lie. It reveals you. We've all had moments when we thought we would do better than we actually did. Maybe it was standing up to speak in front of an audience. Maybe it was being interviewed for a job we desperately wanted. Maybe it was responding in the middle of an argument with someone we love. We thought we would handle it well. We thought we would say the right words. We thought we would deliver something extraordinary. And then we stumbled. We forgot what we meant to say. We froze. We reacted in ways we regretted. Why? Because we didn't practice. We didn't build the habit of staying calm, the habit of thinking clearly, the habit of preparation. We thought the moment itself would somehow transform us, but the moment only exposed us. This truth can be both discouraging and liberating. It's discouraging because it means we can't count on magic. There will be no sudden transformation at the top of the mountain if we didn't climb each step with intention. But it's also liberating because it reminds us that greatness is not a mystery. It is simply the accumulation of practice, of repetition, of deliberate habits built one day at a time. It means the extraordinary is actually born out of the ordinary. You don't need to wait for a special occasion to become your best self. You need to build the habits now so that when the occasion comes, you are simply revealing who you already are. Consider pilots. When something goes wrong mid-flight, when alarms go off, when engines fail, when every second counts, passengers imagine that the pilot somehow digs deep and finds a heroic strength in that moment. But if you talk to any seasoned pilot, they'll tell you the truth in a crisis. They don't rise to the occasion. They fall back to their training. Their muscle memory takes over. They have rehearsed those scenarios in simulators countless times so that when the real emergency comes, they aren't surprised, they aren't frozen, they aren't paralyzed. They simply do what they've been practicing all along. Their calmness isn't bravery, it's habit. Their precision isn't luck, it's preparation. Now think about your own life. What happens when stress finds you? What happens when someone pushes your buttons? What happens when you're caught unprepared? Do you lash out? Do you panic? Do you freeze? Or do you remain calm, collected, focused? The answer has nothing to do with your potential. It has everything to do with your habits. If you want to respond differently in the future, you don't need to wait for a bigger occasion. You need to start building different habits right now. Because when the pressure comes, and it always does, you will fall to whatever you've been practicing. This is why military training is designed to be repetitive and exhausting. Soldiers don't train because they're preparing for an ideal scenario. They train because they're preparing for the worst. They drill the same movements, the same strategies, the same responses over and over until it becomes second nature. Why? Because when bullets are flying and chaos surrounds them, there is no time to think, no time to invent. There is only time to act. And when you act according to your habits. That's what keeps them alive. That's what allows them to lead. That's what allows them to serve. Discipline under pressure isn't instinct. It's the result of practice. It's the result of habits. What makes this principle so powerful is that it applies to every aspect of life, not just life or death situations. If you have the habit of being late, don't be surprised if you're late to the most important meeting in your career. If you have the habit of cutting corners, don't be surprised if you fail when the task requires precision. If you have the habit of avoiding hard conversations, don't be surprised if your most important relationships crumble. If you have the habit of honesty, consistency, and preparation, don't be surprised if you thrive when the pressure mounts. The way you live your days becomes the way you handle your defining moments. There's an old saying that under pressure, you don't become a different person. You become more of yourself. That is both comforting and terrifying. Comforting if your habits are aligned with the person you want to be. Terrifying if they are not, because pressure magnifies whatever is inside you. If kindness is your habit, stress will reveal kindness. If discipline is your habit, stress will reveal discipline. If laziness is your habit, stress will reveal laziness. You can't hide it. You can't mask it. You can't fake it. Pressure makes the invisible visible. It makes your habits undeniable. So the question we must ask ourselves is not, how will I rise to the occasion? But rather, what habits am I building now that will carry me when the occasion comes? The real preparation for the big test is not cramming the night before. It's the daily study habits you built for weeks and months. The real preparation for the championship game is not the pep talk in the locker room. It's the hours of practice when nobody was cheering. The real preparation for leadership is not the speech you give when you're appointed to a position of power. It's the way you treat people every single day before you had the title. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to your habits. And the beauty of this truth is that habits are entirely within your control. You can choose what you practice. You can choose what you repeat. You can choose what patterns you ingrain into your life. Every small choice is a rehearsal for the future. Every small decision is a brick in the foundation you will stand on when the pressure comes. If you want to stand strong, build strong habits. If you want to lead well, build consistent habits. If you want to thrive under pressure, practice thriving when the pressure is low. In the end, pressure is not your enemy. It is your mirror. It shows you who you really are. It shows you what you've been doing when nobody was watching. It shows you whether you've been preparing or pretending. And once you understand that, you stop waiting for the big moments to define you. You start living every small moment with intention, because you know that when the occasion comes, and it will, you won't rise to it. You'll simply reveal yourself through your habits. When we think about character, we often describe it as something abstract, something hidden deep inside us, almost like a mysterious force that determines how we live. We say a person has strong character or weak character as if it's a trait they were born with. But character isn't inherited. It isn't written into our DNA. Character is built. And the builders of character are the habits we choose to practice every single day. The thing about habits is that they don't announce themselves. They don't make noise when they're shaping you. They don't ring an alarm to remind you that they're at work. They're silent. They operate in the background, weaving themselves into your identity without you even noticing. And then one day when life tests you, when someone challenges your integrity, when you're forced to make a choice under pressure, you discover what those habits have been building all along. That is when your character shows up. Imagine a building under construction. At first, you see scaffolding, raw concrete, exposed beams. Nothing about it looks like the final design. And yet quietly, brick by brick, piece by piece, something permanent is being shaped. That's how habits work. They are the scaffolding around our lives, the daily repetitions that nobody else pays attention to. But when the building is finished, when the scaffolding is removed, what remains is the structure, your character. And whether it stands tall or crumbles under weight depends entirely on how those habits were laid in the quiet, invisible days of practice. We like to believe that character reveals itself in grand gestures. Someone tells the truth when it costs them dearly. Someone sacrifices for a friend. Someone stands up against injustice. And yes, those moments matter. But the truth is, those big moments are just the natural outcome of thousands of small moments no one saw. Telling the truth in a crisis only happens if you've been practicing honesty in everyday conversations. Standing up for others only happens if you've built the habit of courage in smaller, safer settings. Sacrifice only happens if you've already practiced generosity when the stakes were low. There's a story I once heard about a man who returned a wallet he found on the street with all the money still inside. People praised him for his honesty as if he had performed a rare act of character. But when asked why he did it, he said simply, "Because I don't keep what isn't mine." In his mind, it wasn't a heroic act. It was just habit. He had built such a consistent pattern of integrity in his life that doing the right thing wasn't even a decision anymore. It was automatic. That's the quiet power of habits. They remove the debate from our choices. They make the right thing the natural thing. The danger is that habits work both ways. Just as positive habits build strong character, negative habits chip away at it silently day after day. If you repeatedly avoid responsibility, you're building a habit of blame. If you repeatedly exaggerate or hide the truth, you're building a habit of dishonesty. If you repeatedly put yourself above others, you're building a habit of selfishness. You might not notice it at first because habits don't shout. But over time, they're constructing the architecture of your character. And one day, when life demands strength from you, you'll discover that the foundation you've built can't support the weight. Think about leaders who fall from grace. We often imagine their downfall came suddenly from one bad decision. But in reality, that moment of collapse is almost always the result of years of small habits that eroded their character, little lies told here and there, corners cut that nobody noticed, choices made for convenience rather than principle. Slowly, silently, their habits built a structure that could not endure pressure. And when the test came, their character crumbled. The world sees it as sudden failure. But in truth, it was predictable. The architecture had been faulty all along. On the other hand, look at leaders who inspire us, people whose character seems unshakable. Their strength didn't come from a single moment of greatness. It came from years of habits practiced quietly and consistently. The way they treated their teams, the way they stayed disciplined when no one was watching, the way they built integrity into small decisions so that when the big decisions came, they already knew what to do. Their character wasn't a performance. It was a reflection of the habits they had built into their daily lives. The challenge for all of us is to pay attention to the small things, because the small things are never really small. Every time you hit snooze instead of getting up, you're not just delaying your morning, you're risking avoidance. Every time you choose not to prepare for a meeting, you're not just saving time, you're rehearsing mediocrity. Every time you look away when something wrong happens, you're not just avoiding conflict, you're rehearsing cowardice. These small habits accumulate, silently shaping who you are becoming. And one day when your moment of truth arrives, you will discover what you've been practicing all along. This is why habits matter more than intentions. Everyone intends to be good, to be honest, to be disciplined, to be courageous, but intentions don't build character. Actions do. Repeated actions especially, or things you do consistently, even when they seem trivial, those are the things that shape your identity. You don't become trustworthy by intending to tell the truth. You become trustworthy by telling the truth every single day. You don't become disciplined by intending to work hard. You become disciplined by showing up even when you don't feel like it. You don't become generous by intending to share. You become generous by sharing consistently even when no one notices. Habits are stronger than intentions because habits transform who you are. What makes this even more profound is that habits not only shape your character, they also shape how others perceive you. Character is not just what you believe about yourself, it's what others experience when they interact with you. And people don't judge you by your intentions. They judge you by your consistent behavior. If you want to be trusted, it won't happen because you promise to be trustworthy. It will happen because day after day, you've built the habit of reliability. If you want to be respected, it won't happen because you demand respect. It will happen because day after day, you've built the habit of respecting others. What people see in you is the architecture of your habits made visible. There's an important humility that comes with this realization. Because if your habits are building your character, then your character is always under construction. You are never finished. You are always becoming. And that means you must stay vigilant. You must examine the small routines of your life and ask, what are these habits building in me? Are they building the kind of person I want to be? Or are they leading me somewhere I don't want to go? Character doesn't collapse overnight. It collapses over years of unnoticed habits. And character doesn't become extraordinary overnight. It becomes extraordinary over years of faithful practice. So the real work of building character isn't about waiting for big opportunities to prove yourself. It's about practicing small habits daily that align with the kind of person you want to become. If you want to be honest, practice honesty when it's easy, so that when it's hard, it will already be your nature. If you want to be disciplined, practice discipline in the small, routine tasks, so that when the big challenge comes, you won't even question your ability to endure. If you want to be kind, practice kindness in ordinary conversations, so that when someone deeply needs compassion, you don't have to manufacture it. You just express what's already in you. The truth is, habits are not just routines. They are rehearsals. Every small action is rehearsal for the person you're becoming. Every repetition is practice for the character that will define you. And when life puts you on stage, when the world is watching, when the occasion comes, you won't suddenly rise to the level of your aspirations. You will simply perform the habits you've rehearsed over time. You won't become someone new. You'll reveal who you've been all along. So don't wait for the big moment to decide who you are. Decide now, in the quiet, unseen moments of everyday life. Because habits are silent, but they are powerful. They are always building. They are always constructing. They are the architects of your character. And one day, when the scaffolding comes down and the world sees the building you've become, it won't be luck or chance or potential. It will be the direct result of the habits you chose to practice. That is who you are. And that is who you are becoming. We live in a world that celebrates big achievements. We admire the person who crosses the finish line first, the leader who takes a company public, the artist who becomes an overnight sensation. We like the highlight reel. We like the moment of glory. But what we often fail to see is that none of those outcomes were created in a single moment. They were built through small, daily choices that compounded over time until they created something extraordinary. Success is never one giant leap. It's thousands of tiny steps taken consistently. The problem is small choices rarely feel significant in the moment. Waking up an hour earlier doesn't feel life-changing. Reading 10 pages of a book doesn't feel like much. Choosing to listen instead of interrupting in a conversation doesn't feel like it will transform your relationships. But here's the truth: these small choices are like drops of water. One drop doesn't seem like much, but if you let those drops fall day after day, over time they can carve through stone. That's the quiet power of compounding. The outcomes that look sudden are almost always the result of choices that were invisible for a long time. Think about money. We all understand that if you save and invest a little consistently, over time it grows exponentially because of compound interest. What's fascinating is that life works the same way. Your habits, your choices, your behaviors, they all compound. Every decision you make is like a deposit into the person you're becoming. Some people invest in discipline, kindness, learning, preparation. Others invest in laziness, shortcuts, distraction, excuses. And just like money, those small deposits don't seem to matter much day to day. But over time, the difference becomes undeniable. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine two people. One chooses every morning to scroll on their phone for an hour before starting their day. The other chooses to spend that hour exercising or learning something new. After one day, the difference is negligible. After 1 week, still not much. But after 1 year, that's 365 hours over 2 weeks of life spent either on distraction or on growth. After 5 years, the gap is enormous. One person has built strength, focus, and knowledge. The other has built nothing but a stronger habit of distraction. Neither of them made one big decision to succeed or fail. They simply made small choices that compounded. This is why it's dangerous to underestimate the power of small things. Most of us think our future will be shaped by big events, getting the promotion, closing the deal, winning the award. But the truth is, your future is being shaped right now in the little choices you make every day. What time you wake up, how you spend your money, how you talk to your colleagues, whether you give your best effort or cut corners. These aren't small things, they are everything. They are the seeds you're planting for tomorrow. And seeds given time always grow. We've all heard the phrase, the straw that broke the camel's back. It's never the first straw that does it, it's the accumulation. The same is true in the positive direction. You don't become healthy because you went to the gym once. You become healthy because you built the habit of showing up, even when you didn't feel like it. You don't become wise because you read one book. You become wise because you read consistently, even when no one else was watching. You don't build trust in a single conversation. You build trust through hundreds of small, consistent moments of reliability, honesty, and care. One of the reasons we often ignore small choices is because the results are invisible at first. If you eat a salad today, you won't suddenly be healthier. If you go for a run once, you won't suddenly be fit. If you save a few dollars, you won't suddenly be wealthy. And so we trick ourselves into believing that these small actions don't matter. But if you eat junk food every day for 6 months, the change will be undeniable. If you neglect your health, your relationships, or your responsibilities in small ways over time, the decline will be obvious. The small choices always matter, they just take time to reveal their impact. The opposite is also true. Negative outcomes rarely appear suddenly. Nobody becomes untrustworthy in one moment. It happens through small lies, small betrayals, small selfish acts that compound over time until trust is destroyed. Nobody ruins their health overnight. It happens through countless choices of neglect. Nobody fails in their career in a single day. It happens through small habits of procrastination, distraction, and disengagement. Failure is rarely a result of one catastrophe. It's usually the result of many small choices compounded. What makes this principle so powerful is that it puts control back into your hands. You don't need to change your life overnight. You don't need to do something massive tomorrow. You just need to make small, consistent choices that align with who you want to become. Do that every day, and over time, you'll look back and realize you've built something extraordinary. The key isn't intensity, it's consistency. Anyone can push hard for a week, but the ones who transform their lives are the ones who make small, faithful choices for years. Let me tell you a story about a teacher who wanted her students to learn the value of consistency. She gave them 2 options. Option 1, receive 1,000 today. Option 2, receive 1 penny today and have it doubled every day for 31 days. Most of the students chose the 1,000. It seemed obvious. A penny is worthless. But the few who chose the penny discovered something remarkable. By the 31st day, the tiny daily doubling had grown to over 10 million. That's the power of compounding. What looks insignificant today becomes monumental tomorrow if you repeat it faithfully. Life works exactly the same way. Every small choice you make is like that penny. It doesn't look like much. But compounded over years, it becomes something massive. The choice to forgive when you could hold a grudge. The choice to study when you could watch TV. The choice to give your best effort when you could do the minimum. The choice to listen when you could talk. These choices don't feel world-changing, but over time they build wisdom, trust, resilience, and strength. And one day, when others marvel at your overnight success, you'll know the truth. It wasn't overnight. It was the accumulation of thousands of small choices. The irony is that we already understand this in areas like health or finances, but we forget it in the areas that matter most: relationships, leadership, personal growth. Trust is built like compound interest. Discipline is built like compound interest. Integrity is built like compound interest. Every small deposit matters. And just like money, the earlier you start, the more powerful the compounding becomes. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second time is today. So ask yourself, what are the small choices you're making right now that are compounding into your future? Are they building the person you want to become, or the person you're trying to avoid? Because whether you notice it or not, the compounding is happening. The only question is whether it's compounding in your favor or against you. The truth is, we all want big outcomes. We want success, health, love, respect, fulfillment. And those things are possible, but they don't come from a single decision. They come from small daily choices compounded over time. That's how you change your life. That's how you build character. That's how you create extraordinary results. Not through sudden transformation, but through consistent repetition. So don't underestimate the small things. Don't overlook the daily choices. They are not insignificant. They are seeds. They are drops of water. They are pennies doubling quietly in the background. They may look invisible now, but they are shaping everything about who you are and who you will become. Success doesn't happen in a moment. Failure doesn't happen in a moment. They both happen slowly, silently, through the compounding of small daily choices. And one day when you look back, you'll realize it wasn't one big event that changed your life. It was the small choices made consistently that shaped everything. That's where real transformation comes from. Not from what you did once, but from what you did daily. Small choices, compounded over time, create big outcomes. Always, motivation is wonderful. It feels good. It excites us. It gives us that spark in our chest that makes us want to start something new. Motivation is the rush we feel after hearing an inspiring story, watching an incredible performance, or listening to someone who stirs our soul. But motivation is also fickle. It doesn't last. It fades as quickly as it comes. Discipline, on the other hand, is steady. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't need you to be excited. Discipline is showing up when motivation has long since disappeared. And in the long run, it's discipline, not motivation, that separates those who dream from those who do. We've all experienced this. We've all woken up in the morning with big intentions. We feel energized, we feel focused, we're motivated. But then the alarm goes off the next day and suddenly the excitement isn't there. The task feels harder. The comfort of the bed feels stronger. And the motivation that was so loud yesterday is silent today. That's when discipline steps in. Discipline says, get up anyway. Discipline says, do it because you said you would, not because you feel like it. Discipline is boring, it's repetitive, it's not glamorous, but it is reliable. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you going. Think about an athlete training for years for a chance at the Olympics. Do you think they are motivated every single day to wake up before dawn, to push through pain, to train when they're exhausted? Of course not. Nobody feels motivated every day. But they do it anyway. Not because they're superhuman. Not because they feel inspired every morning, but because they've built discipline. They've trained themselves to act regardless of their feelings. They don't ask, do I feel like it? They ask, what needs to be done? That is the power of discipline. Motivation is a spark, but discipline is the engine. Without the engine, the spark dies out. That's why so many people start strong but don't finish. They rely on motivation, and when it fades, so do they. We all know people who get excited about a new diet, a new workout plan, a new project, a new business idea for a week or two. They're unstoppable. But then the motivation slips. Life gets hard. The excitement wears off. And because they never built discipline, they stop. Meanwhile, the people who succeed aren't necessarily more talented or more gifted. They are simply more disciplined. They keep going long after the excitement is gone. Discipline is the choice to do the right thing consistently, regardless of mood. It's the choice to honor your commitments, to follow through, to show up even when every part of you wants to quit. Discipline is what builds habits, and habits are what carry you through moments of pressure. That's why discipline beats motivation. Motivation might get you to act once. Discipline gets you to act repeatedly. And repeated actions are what create outcomes. Think about someone learning to play an instrument. Motivation might get them through the first week when it's fun, when it's exciting, when they're imagining themselves playing in front of an audience. But the moment the practice gets tedious, the moment it's nothing but scales and repetition, motivation disappears. Discipline, however, says, keep practicing, and after months and years, discipline turns into mastery. Nobody masters anything on motivation alone. Mastery is built on discipline. The same is true in leadership. A motivated leader can inspire a team for a season, but a disciplined leader creates trust and consistency. Motivation can rally people for a day. Discipline can sustain them for years. Teams don't follow leaders because of what they say once. They follow because of what they do consistently. Discipline builds that trust. It shows people that you can be counted on, not just when you're inspired, but when you're tired, when it's inconvenient. We sometimes confuse discipline with punishment as if it's something harsh. But discipline is not punishment. Discipline is freedom. The person who is disciplined with their health has the freedom to live with energy. The person who is disciplined with their finances has the freedom to pursue opportunities. The person who is disciplined with their craft has the freedom to create at the highest level. Discipline looks restrictive from the outside, but in reality, it expands your possibilities. Motivation gives you a burst of energy. Discipline gives you the ability to use that energy productively over time until it creates results. Consider the writer who dreams of finishing a book. Motivation might help them write a few inspired pages. But discipline is what gets them to sit at their desk every morning, even when the words don't flow, even when the ideas feel dry. Motivation might make them feel like a writer. Discipline actually makes them one. The difference between a book that exists and a book that doesn't is not how motivated the author was. It's how disciplined they were in writing day after day, regardless of how they felt. And this truth is uncomfortable because it means we can't rely on feelings. We love feelings. We love excitement, passion, inspiration. But feelings are unreliable. They're like the weather, always changing, always shifting. If your actions depend on your feelings, your results will be inconsistent at best. Discipline is the anchor. Discipline says, regardless of the weather, regardless of how I feel, I will show up. I will do the work. I will honor my word. That consistency is what creates transformation. There's a story about a Navy SEAL who was asked how he managed to endure some of the hardest training in the world. He said, I never let my feelings make the decision. If I felt like quitting, I didn't listen. I made the decision long before the training began, I will finish. And every day I simply acted on that decision. That's discipline. It's deciding once and then letting discipline carry you through the moments when motivation disappears. What's interesting is that discipline over time creates its own momentum. At first it feels heavy. At first every choice feels forced. Waking up early, saying no to distractions, keeping your commitments, it feels like a burden. But as you repeat it, it becomes lighter. Eventually it becomes habit. And once it's habit, it no longer requires willpower. You don't need to be motivated to brush your teeth every morning. You just do it. That's the beauty of discipline. When practiced long enough, it transforms into identity. You no longer force yourself to act. You simply act because that's who you are. This is why discipline is more powerful than motivation. Motivation is external. It comes and goes based on what's happening around you. Discipline is internal. It's a choice, a muscle you build, a foundation that doesn't move. Motivation might excite you for a day, but discipline will shape you for a lifetime. The irony is that many people wait for motivation to begin. They say, I'll start when I feel ready. I'll act when I feel inspired. But waiting for motivation is like waiting for lightning to strike. You can't build a life on chance. You build it on choice. And discipline is a choice you can make every day. The truth is you don't need motivation to take action. Action itself creates momentum. And momentum is far more reliable than motivation. Discipline is what gets you moving when the spark isn't there. And once you move, motivation often follows. But now it's a bonus, not the foundation. If you think about the people you admire, the ones who inspire you most, chances are it's not because they were motivated once. It's because they were disciplined for years. They kept showing up. They kept practicing. They kept building long after the spotlight faded. They didn't wait to feel ready. They didn't wait for the perfect moment. They acted consistently until the results spoke for themselves. Their success wasn't built on motivation. It was built on discipline. So the question isn't, how can I stay motivated? The question is, how can I build discipline? Because discipline is what will carry you when motivation abandons you. Discipline is what will keep you steady when the excitement is gone. Discipline is what will separate you from those who only dream but never do. And here's the truth: discipline isn't glamorous. Nobody celebrates discipline in the moment. It's quiet. It's repetitive. It's invisible. But over time, it builds a life, a reputation, a legacy. Motivation might make you feel like a hero for a day. Discipline will make you into one for a lifetime. In the end, motivation is the spark. Discipline is the fire. Motivation gets you started. Discipline gets you finished. Motivation is the promise. Discipline is the proof. And when the occasion comes, when life tests you, it won't matter how motivated you were. It will matter how disciplined you are. Because in the end, discipline beats motivation. Always, we all want to shine in the big moments. We want to be the one who rises when the lights are brightest, when the stakes are highest, when the world is watching. We dream about being extraordinary when the opportunity comes. But here's the truth: no one becomes extraordinary in the moment. They become extraordinary in the ordinary. They thrive in the extraordinary only because they prepared when no one was watching. Think about the soldier who reacts calmly under fire. Think about the surgeon who stays steady during a life or death procedure. Think about the athlete who delivers under impossible pressure. These people didn't suddenly discover greatness in the moment. They built it in the quiet, in the daily grind, in the ordinary routines that nobody noticed. The extraordinary was simply the stage where their preparation was revealed. Most of us admire the outcome, but overlook the preparation. We see the performance, but we forget the practice. We celebrate the moment, but we don't see the years of discipline that led up to it. And because of that, too many people want the result without the process. They want to shine in the extraordinary without doing the work in the ordinary. But it doesn't work that way. The extraordinary is not a surprise, it's a reflection. It reflects everything you've prepared for, everything you've practiced, everything you've become when no one else was paying attention. Preparation is not glamorous. Preparation is often dull. It means repetition, routine, and doing the same thing over and over again. It means sweating the details when nobody cares. It means staying late when others leave early. It means practicing for hours for a single moment that may never even come. But that's what separates the ones who thrive under pressure from the ones who crumble. When the extraordinary moment arrives, there's no time to build new habits. You fall back on the habits you've already built. You don't rise to the occasion, you fall to your level of preparation. Consider a firefighter who rushes into a burning building. In that moment, they don't have time to stop and think about what to do next. They don't rely on motivation. They rely on muscle memory. Every movement is automatic because they've trained it 1,000 times in ordinary drills. To us, it looks heroic. To them, it feels routine. That's the paradox of preparation. What looks extraordinary to others feels ordinary to you because you've prepared for it again and again. The same is true in business. Leaders are often judged by how they respond in a crisis, but their response in crisis is shaped by how they prepared when things were calm. The leaders who crumble in chaos are the ones who neglected preparation in the ordinary. They didn't build trust, they didn't strengthen culture, they didn't practice clear communication. And when the crisis came, it was too late. On the other hand, the leaders who thrive in crisis are the ones who did the ordinary things consistently, building trust, listening, preparing their teams. When the extraordinary moment arrived, they were ready. It's human nature to want shortcuts. We want to skip the ordinary because it feels small, it feels slow, it feels insignificant. But the ordinary is where character is built. It's where skills are honed. It's where discipline is forged. If you skip the ordinary, you won't survive the extraordinary. The person who only shows up when it's exciting will never be ready when it's demanding. The person who only practices when they feel inspired will never be steady when the pressure is crushing. We sometimes believe that big opportunities require big preparation. But the truth is, big opportunities are often won or lost in the small things. A single detail overlooked, a single habit ignored, a single weakness left untrained. It shows up when you can't afford it. Extraordinary pressure exposes every crack in your foundation, and the only way to strengthen that foundation is through consistent, ordinary preparation. Take musicians, for example. When we watch a breathtaking performance, we might think they were born for this moment. But if you ask them, they'll tell you the performance was just another practice, only with more people watching. They've rehearsed it so many times that the extraordinary feels ordinary. That's the secret. The more you prepare in the ordinary, the less intimidating the extraordinary becomes. Think about a pilot. Every flight is ordinary. Takeoff, landing, routine checks. But the reason pilots drill the basics over and over is because when the extraordinary moment comes, an engine failure, a sudden storm, a system malfunction, they don't have time to improvise. They fall back on the ordinary drills they've mastered. That preparation is what keeps people alive. Extraordinary outcomes are the result of ordinary preparation done relentlessly. The same applies to us. We may not be pilots or surgeons or athletes, but we all face extraordinary moments. The job interview that can change our career, the pitch that can save our business, the conversation that can repair a relationship. These moments feel big, but they don't reward last-minute effort. They reward long-term preparation. The person who thrives in those moments is not the one who crammed the night before. It's the one who prepared in the ordinary days consistently when no one was clapping for them. The challenge is that preparation is invisible. Nobody sees the hours you put in. Nobody notices the sacrifices you make. Nobody applauds the practice sessions, the late nights, the early mornings. And that's why so many give up. They want recognition before the result. But preparation is not about applause. Preparation is about readiness. And readiness means you don't need to be lucky when the extraordinary comes. You are prepared. You've built yourself for it. What's extraordinary about preparation is that it builds confidence. Real confidence doesn't come from hype or self-talk. It comes from knowing you've done the work. It comes from walking into the moment knowing, I'm ready. I've practiced this, I've built the habits, I've done the ordinary work that others skipped. That quiet confidence is what allows you to stay calm when others panic, to stay focused when others fold, to deliver when others doubt. And preparation doesn't just serve you in extraordinary moments, it transforms the ordinary as well. When you practice discipline, consistency, and focus in small things, it shapes your character in big things. Preparation sharpens not just your skills, but your perspective. It teaches you patience, it teaches you humility. It teaches you to value the process as much as the outcome. And those lessons pay dividends in every part of life. We often hear stories of overnight success, but when you look closer, you discover years of preparation behind it. The musician playing to sold-out stadiums once played to empty bars. The entrepreneur celebrated for building a billion-dollar company once struggled with ideas no one cared about. The athlete holding the trophy once practiced in empty gyms. Extraordinary moments are always preceded by ordinary preparation. Always. So the question isn't, will I get an extraordinary opportunity? Life will give you those moments. The real question is, will I be ready when it comes? And readiness doesn't begin in the extraordinary. It begins in the ordinary. It begins today in how you practice, in how you prepare, in how you handle the small tasks that no one notices. Every ordinary day is training for an extraordinary one. Every small choice is a step toward being ready when it counts most. Preparation is not exciting. It's not glamorous. It rarely feels urgent. But that's exactly why it matters. Because while others wait for their big break, you're building yourself for it. While others rely on luck, you're building certainty. While others crumble under pressure, you're ready. The extraordinary will not catch you by surprise. It will simply reveal the ordinary work you've already done. In the end, thriving in the extraordinary is not about being special, it's about being prepared. It's about choosing to prepare when it's boring, when it's quiet, when it's invisible. It's about doing the work when no one is watching so that when everyone is watching, you're ready. Ordinary preparation creates extraordinary results. And the people who understand this never fear the big moments because they know the big moments will only expose what they've already built. So prepare in the ordinary. Practice in the ordinary, commit in the ordinary. Because when the extraordinary comes, and it will, you won't just survive it, you'll thrive in it.